is one dusty pickguard. I think I might need to change these strings. Hey, welcome to the Bender Bunker, your online home for B-Bender country guitar since all the way back in 2017. And this video today has two things that it's going to do. And before I jump into what both those are, I just want to remind you, you can navigate throughout this video and get straight into the lesson section of it with those chapter headings at the bottom of your screen with your mouse. Just courtesy reminder of that, because I'm going to do a bit of pontificating here to open things up. And so I want to make sure you realize you have that option. The first thing I want to do with this video is recognize a milestone event that's just occurred. This has only happened 3 times in the course of the 5+ years that we've been on YouTube. So it's a milestone, and that is, of course, hitting 3,000 subscribers here on the channel. So that's something to celebrate. I say cue the virtual fireworks. There we go. Had to get a virtual permit for those. Yep. Oh, man. Can you smell the sulfur? No, I can't either. So yeah, 3,000 subscribers, which just is mind-boggling to me. You know, when I think back to when I started this channel in late 2017, kind of on a whim, I'd been playing B-Bender guitar for about 1.5 years, and I knew I was going to make a run in the years to come and try and become a better B-Bender player. And I thought, well, let's just document that journey on video and do what everyone's doing. Put it on YouTube, see what happens. And I thought once we got past friends and family, maybe a couple hundred people might be interested, fellow Bender players. Didn't know. So to be at 3,000 is just very surprising, and I am grateful and want to take a moment to thank everybody that has enabled us to reach that milestone here, all the subscribers over the last 5+ years. Thank you very much. Also, I want to thank everybody that on the way to 3,000 subscribers has supported the channel financially with a quick donation through the Bender Bunker's PayPal account. And the link to our PayPal is in the details section below, along with a list of all of our equipment and all that other good stuff. And those are what we call virtual beer donations. I've always kind of thought of it as, you know, if you saw me playing B-Bender guitar in a band at your local sports tavern, and I come off stage and you think, wow, I really enjoyed what you did, can I buy you a beer? That kind of vibe. And so I want to thank everybody that's taken the time and sent over a little virtual beer donation over to the bunker over the last 5+ years. Always appreciated. And that is absolutely probably pretty much beer and new string money is what that is. And I want to thank everybody that does that. And then also, the fastest and easiest way and free way to support the channel, of course, is with that quick thumbs up. Now, here's something I don't think you understand. A lot of you may not understand the power of the thumbs up. And so, you know, you click the thumbs up, you let the YouTube algorithm know, hey, I enjoy the B-Bender content on the bunker. I also enjoy B-Bender content in general. So, you know, by clicking that button with your mouse, you think, oh, that's nothing. Well, think about this. I mean, you click it with the mouse, it's flying across satellites and going underground cables and going to that YouTube algorithm repository, which is just a giant array of computer storage units underneath in a steel vault, probably at the bottom of a mountain next to a nuclear missile site, probably somewhere in the Midwest maybe. Like there's corn and wheat and nuclear missiles and the algorithm for YouTube all locked away there somewhere. And you click that, and that all the way over in that giant YouTube algorithm, it says, oh, Lord Bender 666 enjoys B-Bender content. We need to show him more. That's what happens when you hit that thumbs up button. So I don't know if you understand the power you have there. I urge you to exercise it. All right, well, that's about it. Just want to take a moment and thank everybody for getting us to that 3K mark. Appreciate it. Now, the main thing this video is going to do, of course, is expand your 7s as it relates to B-Bender guitar. And that's what I'm going to really dive into and talk about next. So stand by for that. But again, if you want to navigate straight to the lesson, feel free with the chapter headings. All right, let's get going here with expanding your 7s here at the Bender Bunker. Okay, let's get rolling with expanding your 7s here at the Bender Bunker. And what do I mean by 7s? Well, good news is it's pretty much exactly what you think it might be. Here's a D7th. Top 3 strings, no big deal. Now, this shape, in my opinion, is one of the most foundational and useful shapes for a B-Bender country guitar player. It can just do so many things. You can do phrasing like that. You can do traditional bending. It can lead you into all kinds of things, get you into all kinds of Bender trouble. I use it all the time. Probably have used it 94.6% of all videos we've ever done. Wait, does he keep spreadsheets? I don't know, do I? And so this is such a key shape for me as a Bender country guitar player that I find myself using it all the time. But as with any type of guitar playing, Bender or otherwise, your go-to positions can get a little bit stale. They can lead you to muscle memory and kind of get you into playing the same thing every time. And that's something we're trying to avoid as players that are trying to evolve forward with the instrument, right? And so here's an exercise I like to do that I'm now going to share with you and see if you get something out of it. So using that D7th as an example, now we can play D7th many places on the neck, as you probably know. I mean, D7th, D7th, D7th. There's 4 of them right there with more available. So we definitely got variations on the 7th theme available to us. So let's use one of them and see what happens, because my hypothesis is this, okay? If we just take something we use all the time and just try and view it from a slightly different angle, and we see it differently because now we've changed our angle on it, does that open up different possibilities than when we always look at it just straight on like that, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm taking this example, this D7th, this top 3 strings, and I'm transposing those notes to a different position on the neck. So instead of being the top 3 strings in those 3 notes, I'm gonna go 2nd, 3rd, 4th strings on those same notes and leave the high E open. So now become with the high E open. Okay, well that's interesting. What are we doing with that now? Well, okay, now we've gotten this position. It does 2 things for me right away. The first thing I recognize, like, wait, I use this all the time. This is a great rhythm tool for country guitar, even rockabilly, depending on how you phrase it. And so that's what we're going to do in the first chapter of this lesson, is I'm going to walk you through that rhythm shape of this alternate 7th position. That's what you saw me do at the opening of that intro video. I just used this position going into the key. We're in G, by the way, for that backing track, G, C, and D, a 1, 4, 5, and G. And so I'm using that position. Once you get that position, it never changes. You're just moving it around to the key changes, and it's really just the slight alterations on the strings to get you those variations you're hearing. And I'll be showing you my pick hand as well, so you can get the rhythm that you're hearing in that intro. So that's the first chapter of the lesson ahead of you, if you want to jump to that. Now that's what I'll be doing there. Now that's fun, but it's not really related to B-bender quite yet, is it? Okay, fine. Let's get to the second part, which is indeed the B-bender part. So there we are in our example key right now of D7th. We're using that alternate position that I've been talking about. Now take a look at that. We're in D. There's the position. What else are you seeing? If you're a longtime viewer, you might be seeing it already. We are just slight alterations. We don't even have to move our hand on the neck away from one of the ground zero foundational B-bender country guitar shapes of what we've always called the Bender Twang box here. That's one of the shapes that started this channel back in 2017. And so we take that shape, right? I'm just going to keep all my fingers on the frets where they are. I'm going to move my little finger over one string and allow my index finger to fall down on the top 2 on the 5th. And now it's the Bender Twang box for G. So, 7th variation, Twang box. Okay, again, we just took a regular 7 shape, transposed it up to here. We're just, I like to think of that as I'm just looking at it slightly different, but what it's done now is it's now put me in incredibly fertile soil for B-bender leads. I can jump out of this position into licks galore. And by the way, Licks Galore, is that not your all-time favorite Bond girl villain from the 70s? Remember her, Licks Galore? She was amazing. So, and that's what you see me do in the second half of the intro video, is use this alternate 7th shape in each of the keys as a platform. I start the key change in that, do a little bit of it, but then jump straight into a B-bender lick straight out of it, because now we are in such amazing territory to open up different types of B-bender leads than if we were just playing the D7th down here. Equally valid, but different enough to actually give us more variations, and indeed, hopefully, if I do this right, expand your 7th playing. All right, that's what we've got in store. Let's get going with chapter 1 and learn this position as a rhythm tool. Coming up next. All right, welcome to chapter 1 of the Expand Your 7th lesson here at the Bender Bunker. Nice to have you on board. Now, if you skipped ahead, use the chapter headings as suggested at the intro, and are just coming straight here, well, welcome. No problem there. Glad you found the chapter 1 quickly and easily. I will say you missed a very humorous story at the intro there involving a trip I took to Thailand with pythons, water buffaloes, and a very angry hotel concierge. But maybe go back for that later. So what we're doing here in chapter 1 is we're going to learn what you saw in the intro video, which is this alternate 7th shape as a rhythm tool. And again, all I'm doing here, assuming you've skipped ahead real quickly, is I took, like, for this example, I'm in D. I took a D7th chord, top 3 strings, and just translated it up the neck to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings, same notes. And And then I always will leave the high E string droning open for all the key changes we're using for this lesson. So now our top 4 strings of this D7th, alternate D7th is. And then we're just moving this shape up and down to the different keys. Now that intro, as I mentioned before, was in G, and it goes to C and D. So we'll be using. Now I'm back in D just because it looks good on the camera. And so here's the alterations. The alternate picking you're hearing and the slight variations on this is not coming from the 4th string with my ring finger. And again, I've got my ring finger on in D, I've got my ring finger on the 7th fret, index finger on the 5th on the 3rd string, and then my little finger on the 2nd string on the 7th. The ring finger on the 4th string is always going to be, that's our anchor finger. It's always going to stay there, not do any variations. The variations are coming from the other 2 fingers. What's happening with variation 1 is the index finger is going down a fret and coming back. Variation 2 is the little finger on the 2nd string is going up 1 fret and coming back. So those are the variations. Those are the only 2 variations you're hearing. I can pick them differently, but that's all that's really happening. This one goes down and back, this one goes up and back. That's all we're really doing there, okay? And again, the high E's always droning open. So again, this being D, think of a D, A-shaped power chord, turn it into a 7th, isolate it to the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, and the high E open. That's your shape. Now here's the key in my mind mentally to move this shape around quickly and easily and also get a nice country sound out of it. It really is dependent on your 4th string anchored by that ring finger. I'm in D and I want to go up here to G. Well, we know the G A-shaped bar chord is up here, so the shape's going to be right here. So I've got to get the D shape that we started with down here up to here. Well, what I'm really thinking about doing is just getting my ring finger on the 4th string from the 7th to where it is now up to the 12th fret to get me in a position for the G chord change. So really, as long as I get that smooth transition with my ring finger on the 4th string from the 7th to the 12th, I guarantee you, because we're just using the same chord shape through all the keys, your other 2 fingers should fall right in line. Just worry about, when you start this, if this is new to you, getting that 4th string where it needs to be, its target area. So ring finger going from 7 to 12 to that D to G chord change. That's how I'm doing it. Also, what's important about that is that also gives it what you heard in the intro and what I can show you now. That 4th string, as I change keys, I'm also using it to slide into it to give you that country sound. And I'm also slide down into it. That's all happening on the 4th string. So 2 things, use the 4th string as your anchor of getting the key change nice and smooth. I guarantee you the other 2 fingers will fall in line once you get that chord shape memorized. And then get slinky with it. Get some audio going to give it that country rockabilly flavor, okay? So work on that. I would say just assume that position. Again, get used to doing the top 4 strings with the high E open on that. And once you get that down, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to an alternate camera view because we've only got the 1 camera here. That's the Bender Bunker budget. Since we have already, said we spend all the money on beer and new strings. I'm going to switch the camera around. Next thing you're going to see is my right hand. I'll show you exactly how I'm picking it to get the sound you heard in the intro, which is... Here we go. It's the debut of Pick Hand Cam. First time here on the Bunker. And so here is what my right hand is doing the way you heard it in the intro here for this rhythm position we just learned. So obviously you can see I'm using my thumb and my index finger in that situation. Now, some folks watching this may not be using fingers yet. It may be pick. Here's what you can do with a pick. You can get pretty darn close. Same basic pattern, just using a pick instead of my fingers. So let's learn the pattern first with a pick and then we'll transfer over to the fingers. So basically, as I suggested just recently about getting quickly and easily into each of these positions by key, concentrate on your 4th string and your ring finger. We're going into D here for this example. And then we're doing that 7-5-7 7 shape, right, on the frets. So I'm starting my pick with a down pick on the 4th string, and then immediately hitting the third and second string together twice. So we're, and then once I do that, I'm doing the variation one I showed you just earlier with my index finger. It's sliding down 1 fret, I'm picking that, and then I'm sliding it back up. So here's what we've got. Now I'm back in position. What I'm doing now is I am up picking the top 3 strings with that high E being open. So then what I'm doing now, I just came off those top 3 strings. I'm doing the second variation I showed you with my little finger off the 7th. It's going up 1, and once I do that, then I'm up picking, starting on the 2nd string, and I'm trying to get as much as I can. If you only get the 2nd and the 3rd string together, that's fine, that'll be enough. I'm trying to get the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Again, my ring finger never moves. So. And then I go right back to where it was on the 7th, and then I pick straight down the position. So. And then I just do the variation 1 again by double picking the 3rd and 2nd string together, but my index finger's down 1. And then the top 3 string. So all together. So I'd kind of get a little bit of a mute going and get a little percussive with my pick if I'm using a pick only situation. Again, if you want to do that variation where you go and then the top 3 strings, you could skip that and just do twice here on that variation. Like that. Of course, then you would pick it twice. Okay, now let's do it the way you saw in the intro. I'm using my thumb to anchor that. So thumb hits the 4th string, and then I'm using my thumb and my index finger to double stop the 2 together, 2nd and 3rd string. And then the index finger's going down for that 1. Again, it's thumb and index on the 2nd, 3rd string. And then I'm going high, the top 3 strings down, index, index, thumb. So here we go. And then this variation, so what I'm doing there is I'm using my thumb on the 4th string that never changed, index, or little finger goes up 1, I'm doing those 2 together. And then it comes back, and then I'm doing those 2 together, back in the same root position. I'm doing the 4th, just walking down the shape. So again, that's 4th and 2nd string together, and then walking it down, 2, 3, 4. And then double stopping the 2nd and the 3rd string together with my thumb and index finger with the variation 1 down and back. Top 3 strings. Now, when you hear me do that, all I'm doing is I'm not fully pressing down with my fingers. I'm only giving it kind of that half of a note. Right? Very percussive with these fingers picking it, and then I'm not fully pressing down once I get in the shape, only allowing certain notes to be fully picked. All right, I hope that helps with the debut of Pecan Cam. All right, welcome to chapter 2 of expanding your sevens here at the Bender Bunker. And if you skipped everything else and jumped here because you're chasing the hot bender action, hey, I don't blame you. In fact, I like the cut of your jib. Let's get to it. Now, what I'm not going to do, though, is I'm not going to show you any of the rhythm sections you may have skipped in chapter 1. So if that confuses you, you better go back and watch it, because we are using the rhythm, the alternate seventh we've been using, and what you saw in the intro, as a platform to get into these bender licks in each of the keys. So here's how we started. I'm going to try and snip this in and get as many of the opening intro licks as you heard into this section of chapter 2. So we're going to cut and edit this video appropriately as I change keys. So here's what we're doing in the opening key of G coming out of that rhythm part we discussed in chapter 1. We're just using the rhythm part ever so briefly as a platform and then getting straight into the licks. That's what we're going to learn right now for the opening in G. If you saw chapter 1, you know what that's all about. Here's the first lick. We're going to let our little finger go to cover the top 2 strings on the 13th. Once we do that, we're going to start with the B string, take the bender up, do the high E next to it twice, and then come back and hit the B string and let the bender down and back up again. So again, up with the B string 13th, 2 on the high E next to it, and then back to the B string 13th to let the bender down and up again. And then we go down to the top 2 with our index finger on the 10th, and we do, starting with the high E 10th, do 3 notes, high E, B. Again, the bender's engaged, keep that in mind. So high E, B, high E, and then come back to the B string on that 4th note to let it down. And then we resolve with the G note on the 3rd string, 12th. I'm using my ring finger there, so that is. And here, I'm picking that last part on the 10th fret much faster than how I come into it. And again, I'm using my thumb and index finger. All right, that's the first lick for the opening in G. Now we go to this variation of it. All right, same starting point. We're going to let our little finger cover the top 2 on the 13th. We're going to start with the B string and take the bender up. And then we do a note on the high E next to it. Bender comes down. Little finger goes up to the 15th. Again, start with the B string. High E, 15th. Keep the bender engaged this time. Don't let it down. And then right back to where we were before. Index finger, top 2 on the 10th. Start on the high E. B string to let it down. Resolve the same way, 3rd string 12. So I kind of bounce the 13th into the 15th with the bender. And then hold the bender. So the 2 together. All right, now we're going to go to C. Okay, C, we come down to that rhythm part. Into that lick. And the lick is this. So what we do is we come out of the rhythm part and we let our index finger, which is already there on the 3rd fret, cover the top 2 on the 10th. We're going to start with the B string, take the bender up there on the 3rd. Hold the bender for a second, keep it engaged. Hop up for 1 note with your little finger on the high E6. Let that up, and then do the high E3rd, already covered by your index finger. Then go to the B string 3rd and let the bender down and up again. So what we just did is bender's engaged again, right? Now we're going. So what I did there is 1 note on the high E5th with my ring finger. And then I followed that with a note on the 3rd string, B string, that's already with the engaged bender. And then I do the high E right next to it on the 3rd. And then I come back to the B string and let the bender down. And resolve it on 3rd string 5th with my ring finger. And that's once you play with some attitude and get that rhythm down, that's what it sounds like. That part of that triplet part's really, the last part's fast. Just kind of start slow with it, and then speed it up. All right, now we're going back to G. Okay, we go back to the dominant key of G and we work this lick in next. All right, so we go back to our main rhythm pattern just for a very brief section. And then we're going to go to the top two on the 10th again like we did before for G, but we're not going to use our index finger to bar it this time. This time I'm doing my middle finger on the second string and my ring finger next to it on the high E on the 10th, because I'm going to need my little finger to go up here to the 12th. So once I get the two fingers there on the 10th, I'm going to start with the B string, immediately hit the 10th next to it on the high, then I go up for one note with my little finger on. The bender goes up and stays engaged. So those first two notes are on the 10th, one up on the high E 12, come back to the B still bent there on the 10th, high E 10. So bender still engaged. Now I'm going to double stop. I'm going to hit those two notes together on the 10th, and on the second one let the bender down. And then I resolve that by letting my index finger go down to the second string 8th, keeping my ring finger on the high E 10th so I can do the 10-8 together. All right, now we're going to go down and do a D lick into a C lick. All right, let's see if we can get the D and the C, because we spend just a half measure on both. We're not spending as much time as we have in the other keys, and it's going to sound like this. So that's D going into C, and we're doing a lick in each. Before we go back to the dominant key of G. So I am starting ever so briefly in this D section with our alternate 7th shape we've been using, and I'm just doing it real quick. I'm just doing, that's all I'm doing. So you should recognize that by now. And then just quick little lick that is straight out of the bender box, one of the most common basic bender licks you can have. And again, that's the beauty that I started this lesson with. Your alternate 7th shape is so close to your Twang bender box, it's easy to do licks like this. So what I'm doing is, and then I'm pre-engaging the bender real quick before I do any of the lick, and I'm starting with the high E 7th with my little finger for a note. Then I've let my index finger cover the top two on the 5th, and I'm starting with the B string. Again, the bender's engaged. High E next to it, coming back to it to let the bender down. And then resolving on the 3rd string 7th with my ring finger. Get real fluid at that, because again, that's the fun of having this alternate 7th shape give you such easy access to the bender box. That's such a common lick that you could just do in your sleep. Get comfortable in all the keys with it. Right? So okay, there's the D part. Going to lead us down into the C part. Now the C part, we're going to start like we're using the alternate 7th shape, but I'm going to do for variety's sake, I'm not going to use it. Okay, I'm going to use the anchor note, which again is that 4th string with my ring finger there, in this case for C on the 5th. So sliding in there with my ring finger to the 4th string 5th, allowing my index finger to go right there on the B string 3rd so I can hit it next and take the bender up. Okay, so 4th string 5th, B string 3rd. Got a couple options there, but what you do is take it up with your bender, hit the high E next to it on the 3rd with your index, hit it again, and then come back to the B string, let the bender down. And then just go ahead with whatever finger you want. I'm just moving my ring finger over to the 3rd string 5th. You can do it that way. Same notes, just different attitude. You can actually go, when you take that up, you can double stop them. It's up to you, right? But that's what's happening. So the D and C together. The bender's down. Again, you've got a lot of variation there, even though it's a very simple part. How you choose to use the bender and attack it and use the bender in rhythm, that's up to you. Salt and pepper to taste. All right, we're going back to the dominant key of G. Okay, we're ready to come back up to the dominant key of G so that we can finish off this first pass and get into our second pass of bender leads. So we're going to do it this way. We're going to kind of start back up in G and then resolve in D. And this is what it sounds like. Okay, so we come back up, we use our 7th rhythm pattern ever so briefly as our platform, as we've been doing. And then we do this lick. I'm going to take my ring finger, slide it very quickly into the 4-string 12th. As I do that, I'm also pre-engaging the bender. So, ring finger, 4-string 12th, pre-engaged. That allows my index finger to fall naturally on the top 2 on the 10th. So I'm covering the top 2 on the 10th. I'm going high E 10th into the B string 10th and letting the bender down abruptly. Like that. Go immediately to the 3rd string 12th with my ring finger to resolve that section. That's kind of what I would call the G section. Kind of ringing nicely for G. Then what I'm doing is as that ring, I'm kind of muting that real quick with the back of my hand and I'm pre-engaging again, okay? I never moved my index finger, it's still covering the top 2 on the 10th. I'm leaving that there. What I'm doing though is I'm letting my middle finger now go to the 3rd string 11th, basically forming the top 3 notes of a D bar chord because I want to resolve this pass in D and that'll do it for me. So then I'm going to go ahead, once I have that middle finger in place, 3rd string 11th, I'm going to hit the 2nd and 3rd string together to let the bender down. So all together that sounds like. So we kind of go up in G, come back down in D. And there we go, we've resolved it, we've through the first pass, and we're ready to get on to the second set of bender leads. So let's get to it. Okay, let's finish strong and go over some of the bender leads from the second pass on that intro video. I'm not going to get to them all, just kind of the highlights. And the first 2 we're going to start with, we're back in the dominant key of G, but the first 2 we're going to start with are actually, I would say, callback licks from previous lessons. So that could be fun for some of the older viewers that have seen them before. So we're back in G, we're going to jump out of our alternate 7th rhythm section. Those are callback licks. All right, let's go over them. We're jumping out of our G rhythm section to this. Recognize that, do you? Has a banjo roll sound to it, and that is from our banjo roll lesson from a year or 2 back. If that sounds tasty to you and you don't recognize it, hey, maybe head over to the main channel page after this. We've got a playlist of all of our bender lessons waiting for you there. Look for the title Banjo Rolls, and that might be a fun one for you to go over. But for now, here is the lick. We're going down to this section of the neck, so I've got my index finger on the 3rd string 6 and the 2nd string 8th with my ring fingers, 6 and 8. And then that allows me to use my middle finger right there above the 3rd string 7th to hammer. Give us that banjo sound. Again, I'm always, as always, using my thumb and index finger to hit the 2 together. So we're going to do that, 6 and 8, and then hit it twice, hammering with the middle finger onto the 3rd string 7th. On the second time, I'm going to leave my middle finger right there. So now that's ringing. I'm going to walk it down from the high E, 1, 2, 3 down. That's all I'm doing. So 2. That's what it sounds like together. All right, now we're going to get to the bender part, which is going to be a little bit ironic for this lesson, which is. So, drop down to the 6th fret on the B string, your 2nd string with your index finger. Hit that note, take your bender up, hold it for a second. High E 7th with your ring, 1 note. Go back to the bender, let it down there on the 6th. And then end with your middle finger following on the 3rd string 7th. What did we just do? We made a 7th shape for our bender, which is the start of this journey. How do we get away from it? I thought it'd be poetic to come back to it at the very end. So the banjo roll lick into the 7th lick. Okay, so we go back to our G rhythm pattern. We do this one. Okay, that's a callback lick. I know I've done that one before. Again, just the top 2 strings on this section. And so we're going B string 6, high E 7th. And I'm always starting, it's 1, 2, 3. I'm always starting each of the 3 by hitting the B string and taking the bender up first. So there it is, bender's being held, high E 7th. Bender comes down before I do the top 2 on the 10th. Again, start with your B string. Bender comes down quietly if you can. And then top 2 on the 13th. Now, before we let the bender down, let's go ahead and hit the B string to make it come down with that note. And then end with your 2nd string 12th. I'm using my index finger there. So it goes up, back down, B string 12th. So all together, top 2 10th, top 2 13th, back down, B string 12th. I probably got a little fancy with it with my pick hand, and that opening got a little excited, probably threw some dead notes in there, may sound like this. So if that gives you any ideas, feel free to use that. All right, so those are the 2 callback licks. Now the backing track's going to C. Did a little something slow there just to kind of slow things down, which was... So jumped out of my C rhythm pattern. What I did is put my middle finger on the B string 3rd, hit that note, took up the bender. When I got to the top, I let my ring finger do the high E 3rd. Now they're ringing together, bender's still engaged. Hopped over to different strings now. I did index finger on the B string 1st, and then my ring finger on the 3rd string 3rd. Hit it twice, and on the 2nd time, let my bender down. Again, I'm hitting together with my thumb and index finger on the pick hand. So up like this, down like this on the bender. Just a little something different, nothing too crazy there, right? So now we go back to G, do some very similar things to what we learned on the first pass. I'm not going to go over those. What I want to finish with is that lick I did to kind of end the whole thing of the 2nd pass and the lesson, which was... Now that very last section we've already learned. We don't have to learn that part again. Again, that's why I just go up here. So we go up in G and back in D to resolve, right? That's how I ended the first pass. So go check that out again if that doesn't sound familiar. You've already learned it. So let's go over this part though. It's a favorite of mine. It works in any key. It makes it sound way fancier than it is. I like to think of this as going from a high octave G bar chord down to a low octave G bar chord on the top 2 strings with 2 stops in between. So I'm up here on the top 2 on the 15th, pre-engaged. Always start with my high E first, then pick the B string to let the bender down. Next one would be top 2 on the 10th. Again, pre-engaged, start with your high E. Then we're going to go to the 7th shape, the traditional 7th shape for G. So that's going to be high E 7th, B string 6. Again, pre-engaged, start with the high E. And then we end, like I mentioned, the top 2 on the 3rd, which would be your lower bar chord for G. Now I'm making it sound a little bit chicken picking because what I'm doing is, and I think what I do is I come down, I throw in a dead note before I get to the next one. To work on that. Again, this works in any key, and then you get to, those 4 points can be adjusted by your key changes, and it's a great B bender lick to have in your arsenal. I love that one. Hope you do as well. So again, and then get up here to G, resolve in D, and we're done. That's it. That's enough to keep you busy, I imagine. But again, the main takeaway I would hope from this lesson is let's always question the main go-to methods we have in our playing, bender or otherwise. You know, it's easy to get stuck in rut as players. You know, I love that traditional 7th shape on the top 3 strings as a bender player. Use it all the time, still will. But it's a useful exercise to just kind of look at it sideways and see if there's any new openings when you look at it differently. And hopefully by transposing that and getting into some different territories on our neck, it did open up a few licks for you as well. And if not, hopefully got a few bender licks here at the end. That's my wish. So again, thanks to everybody that enabled the Bender Bunker to get to that 3,000 subscriber milestone. I'm very appreciative of that. Did not see that coming, and who knows what the future will bring. I sure don't. If I did, I'd tell you. So I'm going to get on out of here and go figure out some more hot bender action for the future. Let's end with our motto, as we always do. It's never too late to go on a bender. Certainly hope you do. And I'll see you again real soon here back at the bunker. But until then, keep it bent.